Ambassador. Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you once again for joining us for our closing press briefing. As indicated during when we assumed the presidency and when we held our initial press briefing, we indicated that we will also come and join you again at the end to give a little bit of a wrap-up and also take some questions and hear from you in terms of how you've seen our presidency, how you've experienced it, and if there are any questions. So once again, welcome. I would like to hand you over to our permanent representative, Ambassador Matthews Matjila. Ambassador.
Thank you, Martinez, our political coordinator. I want to thank you, the members of the media, and brief you on South Africa's presidency of United Nations Security Council for the month of December. South Africa's presidency in December has also been the culmination of its 2 term as an elected member of the Council. At the outset, we wish to extend our gratitude to all of the members of Secretariat for tremendous support received throughout our term, including during our presidency for the last month. We also thank fellow members of the Council for their support and cooperation over the last 2 years and in this month of December. I wish to also take opportunity to thank the A3 of 2019, comprising of Cote d'Ivoire, Equatorial Guinea, and of course South Africa. And the current configuration of A3+1, comprising of Niger, Tunisia, South Africa, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and the latter represent the 6th region of Africa and the diaspora. We thank them for the coordination and cooperation on issues on the agenda of the Security Council. This cooperation of A3+1 helped in delivering a 33 joint statement in this year alone. This would not have been possible without the support and close cooperation of the African Union observer missions to the United Nations led by Ambassador Fatima Mohammed and the chairperson of the AU Commission, Mr. Faki Mohammed, and Commissioner Shegi, and the AU PSC on all African issues on the agenda of the Council. As you may know, it was our intention to originally to have every meeting in the chamber, but because of COVID-19 pandemic, we were unable to do so. Nonetheless, the Council proceeded its work uninterrupted via video conferencing, with December proving to be the very, very busy months and very constructive. During our presidency, we presided over 40 meetings, one of which was in-person meeting when we discussed MONUSCO. In terms of outcomes, we are pleased to have adopted 7 resolutions, one of which was initiated by South Africa, and 3 presidential statements, 2 were facilitated by South Africa, and 1 jointly with South Africa and France. But also we had 1 press statement. Turning now to substantive issues of the presidency. In line with South Africa's foreign policy priorities and Africa-centered focus of our term on the Security Council under the theme, continuing the legacy, working for a just and peaceful world, the principal focus of our presidency of the Security Council in December 2020 was on African issues. We again sought to use our term as the president of the Council to focus the Council attention on assisting to resolve the conflicts that persist on the African continent and which continue to hinder the vast potential that the continent and its people have. It was with this in mind that the first signature event of the presidency was a high-level debate on security sector governance and reform, which took place on the 3rd of December 2020 and chaired by Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Dr. Naledi Pandor. This meeting saw ministerial participation for a number of Council member states, Belgium, Estonia, Tunisia, Germany, Indonesia, as well as South Sudan. The purpose of this meeting was to highlight security sector reform as a critical pillar of peace building, recognizing a surge by the African Union and which South Africa has consistently championed in the context of United Nations post-conflict reconstruction and development efforts in Africa. It was encouraging to see significant unity from members of the Security Council on the importance of security sector governance and reforms, and unanimous supported South African drafted resolution, adopted as Resolution 2553, and which was provided important update to Resolution 2151 of 2014. The newly adopted Resolution 2553 was also co-sponsored by 31 UN member states, a great achievement indeed. A core pillar of South African policy in its current term, as well as in previous term of Security Council, has been to advance the cooperation between United Nations and the African Union. During our current term, South Africa has consistently worked to advance Security Council decisions in support of the African Union initiative on silencing the guns across Africa, as well as Agenda 23, the Africa we want, which is the African Union blueprint for achieving a peaceful, secure, and developed Africa. In this context, our term as President of Security Council, as well as us also chairing African Union, was a catalyst event for convening our second signature event, namely high-level debate on the cooperation between United Nations and the African Union. This meeting was held on the 4th of December and chaired by our President, President Cyril Ramaphosa, who is also the current chair of the African Union. We were fortunate to receive briefings by Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, and the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Mr. Musa Faki Mahamat. The meeting saw participation by a number of heads of state and government from Niger, Tunisia, Service and Grenadines, Sudan, as well as deputy heads of state and government and ministers from China, Belgium, Vietnam, Germany, Estonia, United Kingdom, and Indonesia. This meeting adopted two outcomes. The first was Presidential Statement SR-PRST/2020/11, which focused on the relationship between the UN and the AU, that welcomed the determination of the African Union to fulfill its ambition of silencing the guns in Africa, having observed significant gains made in this regard. It acknowledged the benefit of the partnership between the United Nations and African Union within a framework for enhanced cooperation in peace and security. It is also recognized the important role played by both women and youth in maintaining and promoting peace on the African continent, and emphasized addressing the root causes of a conflict in Africa while pursuing the AU Agenda 2063 and the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The second outcome was again the adoption of Presidential Statement S/PRST/2020/12 to cease the periodic reporting by Secretary General on the situation in Burundi in the Council, and as a consequence, the periodic consideration by the Council of such a report. So Burundi is out of the agenda of the Security Council. The final signature event South Africa convened under its presidency was an open debate on the theme, I quote, the promotion and strengthening of the rule of law, strengthening the cooperation between the Security Council and the International Court of Justice, held on 18 December 2020. This meeting sought to advance the important relationship between Security Council and International Court of Justice, focusing on the Council and Court's contribution to upholding the rule of law at the international level as part of the maintenance of international peace and security. The meeting was briefed by Judge Abdulagi Ahmed Yusuf, President of the International Court of Justice. It was underscored that the relationship between the International Court of Justice and Security Council is already strong, but noted that it could be strengthened by more frequent interaction, and noted that the Council could also periodically call on the states to accept the mandatory jurisdiction of the court as it is last date in 2012. The Council also adopted Statement S/PRST/2020/13, 2020/13 that focus on the complementary role that the ICJ can play to the Security Council in promoting peaceful settlement of dispute, strengthen capacity of states to resolve conflicts, especially developing countries, encouraging closer cooperation between the two organs. In the partnership with the delegation of the Dominican Republic, France, Ireland, Kenya, Niger, Norway, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Tunisia, SACO hosted an area formula meeting on the youth, peace, and security to commemorate the 5th anniversary of Resolution 2250. This commemoration focused on the utilization of intergenerational dialogue to promote meaningful participation, inclusivity, and representation of youth in peace processes at the grassroots and community level. This meeting further reaffirmed the crucial role played by youth in peace processes and urged involvement of youth in key decision-making processes, including in the entire process of peace agreements. And lastly, let me mention some few other meetings. On the 4th, Security Council unanimously adopted Resolution 2554, in which it decided to renew for further 12 months the authorization granting the states and regional organizations cooperating with Somali authorities in the fight against piracy and armed robbery at sea off the coast of Somalia. We also had a meeting on MONUSCO, focusing on the gradual and phased progressive withdrawal of MONUSCO from the DRC. We also discussed the issue of United Nations missions in Sudan, UNITAMS, that ensures that UNITAMS kicks in beginning of January 2021 as UNAMID ends midnight 31st December 2020. We also looked into Central Africa and looked into the activities that dealt with the Lord Resident Army. As I said, we also discussed the important issue of Darfur and Sudan, and we looked into Libya, where the Council received very positive, encouraging reports on the development in Libya when we were consulting on United Nations support mission in Libya and noting progress in both political and security tracks happening in Libya. We also focused on United Nations mission in South Sudan, UNMISS, where we focus on the political and humanitarian missions in that part of Africa. So these were some of the key council meetings that we discussed during the course of the month. We are now ready to take questions that members may have.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. We have, first of all, we've got a question from Sherwin Bryce-Peace, SABC. Sherwin?
Thanks, Martinez, and good evening, Ambassador. On behalf of the UN Correspondents Association, thanks so much for doing this briefing, and congratulations on the almost end of your 2-year tenure in the Council. I wanted to ask a question about the news on Nikolai Mladenov's withdrawal and resignation from the United Nations system, given how hard South Africa and other African countries had fought to have an African lead the Libya mission. I wonder what South Africa's posture will be regarding who should now be installed as the special representative to head the UN mission in Libya. And then in addition to that, the UN Human Rights Office in Geneva today talked about violations of international humanitarian law, violations of human rights law by all the parties to the conflict in Ethiopia. They talk about deliberate targeting of civilians, extrajudicial killings, and widespread looting of places like banks and hospitals, among others. Africa has sought space from the wider international community to deal with the question of Ethiopia, including the appointment by the AU chair, President Cyril Ramaphosa, of 3 high-level African Union envoys. and yet we are not seeing progress on the Ethiopia file. What can you tell us about the way forward here? And is it time for the African Union to get tough on Ethiopia, given the revelations by the Human Rights Office in Geneva today?
Shall we take another question? We have another question from Pamela from CBS. Pamela?
Yes, thank you. Maybe a long one to follow Sherwin's, but first of all, congratulations for the end of the month and the presidency, and thank you so much for the access you have given us in the press for briefings and stakeouts, even virtual ones. And thank you, Martinez. My question is about your view of whether the World Health Organization is doing enough, what they're doing particularly, and this is more a domestic issue, but about the new COVID strain that has been discovered both in the UK and in South Africa. And a side question, a bigger picture question, is what do you think the best achievement has been at the Security Council during your 2 years? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador.
First, Sherwin, on the issue of Sherwin, thank you and the members of the UN Press Corps. It's always a great pleasure to interact with you, and we want to thank you for supporting our presidency and giving us space to articulate our views on the matters before Security Council. Now, Sherwin, on the issue of Mladinov, as you may recall, the 83+1 and the rest of the Security Council have given the Secretary General a go-ahead to make his appointment because it is his prerogative. Of course, he does consult the Security Council. And we are all optimistic that we'll hear very soon announcement of the envoy in Libya. Given the political process taking place, consultation among the Libyan parties, given the calm and the ceasefire by both parties. But we were informed yesterday that Mr. Mladinov said thanks, but thank you for the offer. So this means that the Secretary General will have to start again and do his level best, like he normally does, Secretary General Guterres. Look around the world, including Africa, and see if he can find another candidate to replace Mladinov. On our part, of course, you will understand we are consulting the African Union, as we normally do. We want to hear what are the views of the African Union, either from Commissioner Shegi, from Chairperson Fagi Mohammed, and our own capitals, what do we think. So the process began now, and we hope that perhaps before the end of the year, there will be a name or two that has been agreed. But in the meantime, we are grateful that the acting envoy is doing a good job by shuttling between the two, all the parties in Libya, by making sure that there is a movement on all the tracks, be economic track, be security track, and be it the humanitarian assistance. So I think our sister there, she's doing a lot of good work. Now, on the human rights report in Ethiopia, I'm sorry I've not seen the report, but I can imagine that the relevant authorities in Ethiopia and within Geneva will discuss the report as it tabled or as been discussed. We have not seen it here. So we hope that maybe in the coming days we'll see the report. Now, Pamela, CBS, thank you so much for your being always available. Now, on the two questions you have asked, Pamela, on what is WTO doing, we understand, we learn that the WHO is contacting UK. They've been in contact with the relevant scientists in UK, gathering more information about new strains. And I'm sure they will do the same thing in South Africa to see how does this strain impact on the existing health protocols and administering of COVID-19. But we are informed that in the meantime, all of us must retain the protocols, social distancing, putting on the mask, washing our hands regularly. But as of now, we are not sure of the details of WHO interaction with other governments around the world, especially UK and South Africa. What has been the first achievement for us? Pamela, as we said, when we came to the council, our aim was, among other things, to make sure that we look into the African continent and see if, together with our council members, we cannot move a number of conflict towards a resolution. We cannot make sure that countries implement agreed timelines moving towards peace and stability. To make sure that there is more and more negotiation, more and more discussion, more and more talking among parties. As you can see, most of them, they begin that process. Somalia, now they're on track for the elections next year. CAR are elections end of this month. And so Libya is also discussing a timetable now towards the elections. We are sure the DRC will also very soon unlock the timetable roadmap towards 2023-2024 elections. I'm sure we'll see the transitional arrangement in Sudan moving closer and closer towards elections. And the second part of dialogue, we saw in South Sudan a number of armed groups joining the government. We saw Sudanese armed group meeting in Juba and agreeing to join the transitional government. We saw in Libya sitting down, agreeing to work together towards a resolution. We saw in CAR a number of armed groups joining the government towards election. So that was our focus as South Africa, to move towards that direction. We know that you cannot do much in 2 years, but at least you can move situation in that direction. The second one was to make sure that the AU and the UN cooperation is strengthened. As the AU develop systems, mechanisms, institutions to take responsibility for peace and security, the UN should assist in those efforts and direction. Hence, we had the high-level meeting chaired by President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa on the 4th. But also we tried to look, Pamela, on what are those trigger issues that if you can do right, they may ensure sustainable peace building. And we say, but why is it possible that we move 3 steps ahead and then go 4 steps backwards? We realize that maybe if we can concentrate on the security sector reform and make sure that it is done inclusively, participation of the civil society, of ordinary people, youth, women, it's acceptable. The new security sector is acceptable by the people. Maybe we can build in the system that will guarantee ownership and continued stability. So we begin to deal with these issues going forward, because our idea was we'll build a huge base and cement the foundation that other council members can build on and on. That's why we also look into question to complement the issue of inclusive, sustainable peace through security sector reform. We also went to the ICJ and we said, but, International Court of Justice has a role to play. It can work very well with the Security Council. These bodies can complement one another. But the intention was to say to the UN member states, please use this court. Once we see early warning of tension, disagreement, than to pull the trigger to arm. Let's go to the court and say to the court, these two countries have a problem. Can you help us to resolve the problem peacefully? So that we can use this Chapter 6, Pacific Settlement of Dispute, and the court can play that role of assisting member states in resolving their conflicts on time. And actually, Pamela, if you do that way, you have the possibility of creating conditions of reconciliation, nation building, and development. Unlike if you go to war, the distractions, refugee, internally placed people, the antagonism increases and conditions of reconciliation become less and less permanent. That was part of the idea of South Africa, to look into what we have done in 2012 when we in the council come back again as part of building an environment of dialogue and peaceful resolution of conflict. As we say, leaving the legacy of Nelson Mandela. Peaceful resolution of dispute, negotiation, facilitation, discussion, and going forth. So these are some of the few things that we plan to do. I don't know Martinez want to add, because he is in the agent room of the council.
No, nothing from my side. Thank you, Ambassador. We've got two more questions. The next is from Abdelhamid from Al-Qud Al-Arabi.
Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador, and thank you for your engagement with the media for the last 2 years. Again, I miss you, and I hope you will be stay around with us. Mr. Ambassador, you had a close meeting yesterday about Western Sahara. You know, there was no progress in this issue for so many years, and the decision by President Trump in his last few days probably complicated the issue further. So how do you see that this issue could be resolved peacefully? And don't you see that these resolutions are very vague when they say any solution has to be agreed upon unanimously, agreed by both parties, to be a realist, and to achieve the self-determination of the people in Western Sahara? Don't you see these resolutions are complicated and, in fact, contradictory in nature? And that brings me also to the issue of international law. Don't you see that some superpower are now, they only use the UN when it fits them, like the US when it comes to Iran sanctions, they rush to the Security Council for support. When it goes on North Korea, they do go to the Security Council for support, but in other issues, they trespass international law and they decide unilaterally to grant land that don't belong to them to those who don't own it or don't have anything to do with it, like the Golan Heights and Jerusalem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We've got another question from Elena Lenza. Elena?
Hello. Hi, Ambassador. Thank you for taking my question. Thank you for the briefing. I'm from the Portuguese news agency, Lusa. And I wanted to ask about the mission of stabilization of Guinea-Bissau, UNIOGBIS, that is going to close by the end of the year, after more than 2 decades in the country. And I would like to have an evaluation from you about how the work of the Security Council was over the mission of UNIOGBIS. And would you give us an insight of how it all went during the last 2 years that you have been in the Security Council, and your opinion of the 20 years in the country, if the 20 years in the country in Guinea-Bissau was longer than expected for UNIOGBIS? And maybe last question, how is the mood of the Security Council and of the South Africa when UNIOGBIS and other 2 missions are coming to an end this year? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador.
Thank you so much, Abdul. On the issue of Western Sahara, our view has been the Security Council has an obligation and a duty to implement its own decisions. especially if the decisions are adopted unanimously. Now, for us, the point of departure is Resolution 690 of 1991, which was adopted unanimously by Security Council, including all the permanent members of Security Council. And they say this is part of international law. And based on this, we'll then move to prepare the referendum for Western Sahara. So the Sahara people can then choose either they remain part of the Kingdom of Morocco or they build their own country, like we did in Sudan, South Sudan. We asked South Sudanese, simple question, do you want to be part of Sudan or do you want to form your own country? So we thought that the same right should be given people of Western Sahara, self-determination. Now, international law is international law. We all must respect this international law. So when we formed this meeting, when we called this meeting, the idea was to remind the world that we are all obliged, we all have the duty to address this long-standing question and implement Resolution 690, which will be 30 years old next year. And we said we cannot be informed that just because there is no envoy of Secretary General, we freeze the political track there. And we said there is a problem in Western Sahara. There is a building frustration in Western Sahara. And that frustration may complicate the lives of most of us in North Africa, if not addressed. Because people's patience is not endless. There is a limit to patience. So that was our intention of the meeting yesterday. So we do hope that as the African Union Extraordinary Summit called on the 6th of December, convened by President Ramaphosa, that the AU should look into how to urge the two parties to return back to the ceasefire and return back to the political process like we saw when we had Geneva I and Geneva II processes. And secondly, the Secretary General should double his efforts to appoint an envoy to kickstart. If not, we must look into other alternative ways of kickstarting the political process in Western Sahara, including that we should secure the human rights of Sahrawi people. So we hope that in the coming years, next month, even if you are not there, the council members will be seized with the issue of Western Sahara. We cannot pick and choose which resolution we implement, which one we don't implement. So Abdul is right. It's not a la carte. Sudanese resolutions must be implemented, all of them. We do hope that the new administration in the U.S. coming after June 20 will have a different thinking on Western Sahara, and perhaps will help Secretary General with appointing an envoy to deal with these issues. Now, Elena, Portuguese agency, my sister, UNOBIS. We went to Guinea-Bissau last year at Security Council. And we met all political players. We met the parliament. We met the president. We met ministers, political parties, women, youth, activists. And we say to them, the destiny of Guinea-Bissau is in our own hands. The EU, ECOWAS, UN, AU, Portuguese-speaking countries can do just so much. But the rest is in their own hands. And we said to them, you have such a very huge, rich country with so much marine resources. Potentially a very rich country, few people. Bury your differences, sit together and chat away and say, like the rest of West Africa, like the rest of Africa, or like Cape Verde, Guinea-Bissau can have a brighter future. So we put some benchmarks, and as we said to them, have elections, have peace, do the following things. As you do them, we'll transfer resources from UN, country team, and help you on the path of sustainable development. We'll mobilize resources for you to do certain things. And then we said to ECOWAS, do what we have been doing all the time. Come in ECOWAS timely and assist our brothers and sisters in Guinea-Bissau to find peace. So, Elena, we're satisfied with the reports that the way things have moved, although not 100% yet, but at least they moved to a point where we can say to them, you are on your own, we'll assist you, but please come together and have the issue. So the ASG Bintu Keita was in Guinea-Bissau, met the president and everybody agreed that the UN country team will help them going forward. So the closure of the UN operations and transfer of resources to the agri team to accompany them, like the termination of UN office in Burundi, but transferring resources in terms of peace building, the country team and Burundi, we believe that these two processes does indicate that there is something good happening in Africa. The African leaders are taking responsibility with their people to resolve the long-standing conflict. So on the other issues, Elena, our intentions has been to say to the Council, please listen to Africa. Let's implement the content and the spirit of Chapter 8 of the United Nations Charter. As we celebrate the 75th anniversary of that charter recognizes the role of regional organizations. We're then saying, if you have a regional organization like AU, which has developed its own peace architecture and has its own organs for peace, and have few regional brigades that can be mobilized to intervene in conflicts, and have shown the attitude that regional, sub-regional organization can move in, like you saw ECOWAS in Mali, in Guinea-Bissau, like you saw SADC in Lesotho, that you have bodies that say we are capable, the political intention, capacity to resolve conflict, support them. Further, more than that, that even having their own fund, we have a peace fund now in the AU to show that the African leaders and people are ready to take responsibility, as well as the integration of Africa. We are launching 1st of January the Continental Free Trade Arrangements. These programs supporting the 2063 agenda, Africa we want, is a central focus of where we are going the next 50 years. I think are very critical to be supported by Security Council. So that the Council, although we have a P5, but they must recognize the growing sub-regional role of countries in the African continent. So we hope, Elena, that the P5 and other Council members will take to heart and complement the efforts of sub-regional organizations.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Ambassador. We're going to finish off with two last questions. We have one from Evelyn Leopold, and then to be followed by Sherwin. So, Evelyn.
Much. Good to see you again, Ambassador, and thank you for all your briefings since you became Council President. I assume you will stay with us and continue working in the GA and not leaving New York, but do let us know. Are you in any way worried that with UNAMID winding down in Darfur, that the Janjaweed have not stopped doing their nasty work? Are you worried that there's no one to protect the villagers? Well, the villagers. The Janjaweed are not villagers. And secondly, the new designate you ambassador, Linda Thomas Greenfield, has spent quite a bit of time in Africa. You expect to have contact with her. Thank you, and good luck to you.
Thank you very much, Evelyn. And then a last word from Sherwin, colleagues, because we need to wrap up. We've got another announcement for the Council. The Council will announce the vote on UNAMID at 5 o'clock. So, Sherwin, last question from yourself.
Thanks, Martinez. Final question for you, Ambassador. What has your 2-year term as a non-permanent member and the first-hand experience that must have taught you, informed you about the need for Security Council reform? What has your experience on the Council as a non-permanent member informed you or taught you about the need for Security Council reform? Thank you.
Thank you, Sherwin.
Thanks, Evelyn. Evelyn, Sherwin will determine whether I stay or go. So I will hear Sherwin's pronouncement in an appropriate time. Now, Evelyn, we have been discussing until recently the issue you have raised, because we did decide that we need a new mandate in Darfur in Sudan. So we need to terminate UNAMID, this UNAU mission, and have a new mission, UNITAMS, that will then accompany Sudan towards peace and stability. So we did discuss the issue of protection of civilians, the issue of winding down of UNAMID, the issue of the assets of UNAMID. That is why the resolution that we adopted yesterday on UNAMID, the OP2 of that resolution gives some form of safeguard. We say, as UNAMID withdraws for the next 6 months, beginning 1st of January to 31st of June, will retain a guard unit within UNAMID that will help to protect the civilians. Parallel to that, we now have a 4,000-strong Sudanese protection force. The force will increase to 11,000. That will be deployed in Darfur to make sure that no other elements can undermine the peace in Darfur. The other important thing was to make sure that all the major armed groups, including those in Darfur, are part of these transitional arrangements in Khartoum, except only one. So with more and more part of these transitional arrangements and actually being trained to be part of protection force itself, we believe that we have reduced the risks of attack on the civilians in Darfur. That the drawdown for the next 6 months will go smooth, including transfer of some of the UN assets to the local authorities in Darfur. We hope as Linda arrives here, hopefully in the first 2 months of 2021, the Council's attention to Africa will increase. We hope that Linda will bring her vast experience in dealing with many conflicts and developments in the continent, in the Council, and that will fortify the A3+1 and the Council as a whole in Africa. By the way, Evelyn, if there are areas where the Council is always unanimous, it is dealing with the African conflict. So we hope that Linda will add additional weight in that regard. Now, Sherwin, question on the reforms. We are convinced, especially after the third tenure in the Security Council, that the Council need to be reformed. That this archaic structure that has been there since 1975 need to be transformed and reformed like many other structures in the world to deal with the new contemporary policies. If you look at the contribution of the 5 countries that are exiting in terms of substance issues, how to resolve conflict, I mean, we have done so much on things that even the P5 could not have done. If you see the kind of products that came up and the kind of subject that we are very brave to discuss and ensure that the Council, especially the P5, address those issues and agree with us. That's why in most cases we have this unanimous adoption of resolutions. But I'm more than convinced that Africa deserves the seat around permanent member table of the Security Council. It is not only because we're there, but because of the quality, intensity of our cooperation, input, and deliberation in the Council, that everybody is convinced in the Council that Africa deserves to be in the Council. More so that we have this support from the leadership of Africa in the continent as they deal with conflict from one under the other, say, we want to deal with it. We have to deal with it. The world of 45 is surely different from the world of 75. So I hope that we have shown with our deeds, we have shown with our action, we have shown with the products that we developed and got at the Council that we have the responsibility and the capacity to fulfill the obligations of members of the Security Council, including having our troops, men and women, in many conflicts around the world, especially in Africa. So we do hope, Sherwin, that our last 2 years, like one member of the UN said during the briefing to the membership at 2:30, that this has been a clear demonstration that Africa must be around the table. We're able to deal with a very toxic council, highly divided council. But we say to them, even if you differ, this is the bridge. Let's move towards this direction as we celebrate the 5th anniversary of the nation. And by extension, celebrating Security Council itself, 75 years ago. So if the UN, if the P5 cannot draw lessons from the participation of the outgoing 5 on the capacity, the need to do the just thing right, I don't know what will change their minds. But I am convinced that they have learned. And I'm sure when we go back to the intergovernmental negotiation, IGN, early next year, more and more people will say it's high time. It's high time that the Council accommodates Africa in its permanent and non-permanent seat. Thank you very much, Martinez.
Thank you, Ambassador, and thank you very much, members of the press. We appreciate it. That's the end of the press briefing, unfortunately, and have a good evening, and also for those of you, happy holidays for the days ahead. Thank you so much.